In this slide, it illustrates how fundamental principles of Islamic finance contribute to sustainability and long-term stability. One of the key principles is the prohibition of riba, or interest. Instead of relying on fixed interest-based returns, but Islamic finance promotes profit sharing and risk sharing arrangements. This encourages fairness among all parties involved and helps create a financial system that serves the interests of society as a whole. Another important principle is the prohibition of qarar, which refers to excessive uncertainty in transactions. By requiring clarity, transparency, and full disclosure, Islamic finance minimizes the risk of disputes and unethical practices while promoting accountability and responsible decision making. In addition, Islamic finance prohibits mayors or gambling and excessive speculations. This encourages investment in productive and value-generating economic activities rather than high-risk speculative ventures. As a result, resources are directed towards sectors that support sustainable growth and long-term development. Overall, these principles demonstrate that Islamic finance is not only a financial system but also a framework that promotes ethical conduct, social responsibility, and sustainable economic progress.
For my part, I will explain the key differences between conventional bonds and sukuk. Although both instruments are used by governments and corporations to raise capital, they differ significantly in terms of their structure and underlying principles. First, in terms of underlying structure, conventional bonds represent a debt obligation between the issuer and investors. In contrast, sukuk represent ownership or beneficial interest in an underlying asset, project, or business activity. Second, the return mechanism is different. Bond investors receive returns through interest payments, also known as coupon payments. On the other hand, sukuk investors earn returns from profits, rental income, or revenues generated by the underlying assets as interest is prohibited under Sharia principles. Third, regarding Sharia compliance, conventional bonds are not subject to Islamic financial requirements. Sukuk, however, must comply with Sharia principles, including the prohibition of riba or interest. Fourth, conventional bonds do not necessarily require tangible assets to support their issuance. In contrast, sukuk must be backed by tangible assets or Sharia compliant economic activities, ensuring a connection to real economic value. And finally, in terms of risk and ownership, bondholders act as creditors and primarily bear credit risk. Sukuk holders, however, have ownership interest in the underlying assets and therefore share both the risk and rewards associated with those assets. In conclusion, the main difference is that conventional bonds are debt-based instruments that generate returns through interest payments, whereas sukuk are asset-backed and Sharia-compliant instruments that generate returns through profit sharing and asset performance.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. My name is Vana Nadira and I will proceed with the key characteristic of SG SRI Sukuk and Green Sukuk. The first one is SG SRI Sukuk and Green Sukuk is compliance with Sharia principle. Islamic finance promotes fairness, ensures sustainable projects are financed through ethical and lawful transactions while maintaining compliance with Islamic teachings. The second one is ethical and responsible investment focus. One of the core objectives of Islamic finance is promoting social welfare and preventing harm to society. This aligns closely with the Islamic concept of maslahah, which is public interest, and the objective of maqasid al-sharia, which seek to improve human well-being and protect society. The third one is transparency and accountability. This is a fundamental principle in both Islamic finance and sustainability investing. ESG SRS Sukuk issuers are required to do regular reporting and independent verification to ensure that the investor can monitor whether the processes are used according to Sharia requirement and sustainable objective. The fourth one is measurable sustainability outcomes. Unlike traditional financing instruments that primarily focus on financing returns, ESG, SRS Sukuk, and Green Sukuk are designed to achieve measurable environmental and social outcomes. Project finance must demonstrate clear and quantifiable impacts such as enhanced social welfare and community development. This impact-based approach allows investors to evaluate both financial and performance and societal benefits making this sukuk attractive to sustainable conscious investors. The final characteristic is alignment with ESG and Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs). This characteristic demonstrates the compatibility between Islamic finance and modern sustainability frameworks, particularly SDG 7, which is affordable and clean energy, that financing renewable energy projects such as social and wind power to promote clean energy access, and SDG 13, which is climate action, that is supporting projects that reduce carbon emission and mitigate climate change. These goals are consistent with Maqasid al-Sharia, which promotes public welfare and environmental protection. ESG SRI Sukuk help create long-term value while addressing environmental and social challenges.
Next, I will explain about the importance of Maqasid al-Sharia in sustainable Islamic finance. So, Maqasid al-Sharia refers to the high objective of Islamic law, which aim to promote the public welfare and to prevent harms. In Islamic finance, it serves as a guidance framework to ensure that financial activities benefit both individuals and society as a whole. So, for better understanding in Maqasid al-Sharia, we can look at its 5 essential objectives known as al-Daruriyah al-Khams. So, the first one is religion. This ensures that financial activities remain Sharia compliant and avoid prohibited elements such as riba and gambling. The second one is life. This can be achieved through sukuk financing for healthcare facilities, such as hospitals and social welfare projects that can improve people's well-being. The third one is intellect. This can be achieved with supports investment in education, research, and knowledge development. The fourth one is the protection of wealth. In Islamic finance, it promotes transparency, fairness, and asset-backed investment to safeguard wealth and reduce the financial exploitation. And the fifth one is the protection of future generation. It reflected in green sukuk that finance renewable energy and environmental sustainable projects. Together, these 5 objectives demonstrate how Maqasid al-Sharia support both sustainable development and responsible in Islamic finance. So, why is Maqasid al-Sharia is important in sustainable Islamic finance? So, the importance of Maqasid al-Sharia can be seen in several ways. The first one, it promotes the social welfare and justice. ESG or SRI Sukuk can be used to finance projects such as healthcare facilities, educational institutions, affordable housing, and community development programs. These projects improve the quality for life for society and support inclusive economic growth. Second, it emphasizes the environmental protection. As a steward of the earth, humans have a responsibility to protect natural resources. This is where Green Sukuk plays an important role by financing renewable energy projects, green building, and sustainable transportation system. This initiative help reduce environmental damage and support long-term sustainability. The third one is it encourages ethical and responsible investment. Islamic finance prohibits harmful activities such as interest-based transaction, gambling, and businesses that negatively affect the society. As a result, investment made through ESG or SRI, Sukuk, and Green Sukuk are directed towards the project that create positive social and environmental impacts. In conclusion, Maqasid al-Sharia is the foundation of sustainable Islamic finance because it balances financial return with social responsibility and environmental sustainability. This make ESG or SRI Sukuk and Green Sukuk effective tools for achieving sustainable development while remaining Sharia compliant.
For my part, I will be presenting examples of sectors or projects financed through ESG or SRI Sukuk. The first one is renewable energy projects. ESG or SRI Sukuk are widely used to finance renewable energy projects such as solar farms, wind energy, and hydroelectric power plants. In Malaysia, the world's first green sukuk was issued to finance large solar photovoltaic projects, helping to reduce carbon emissions and support clean energy development. The next one is green buildings. Sukuk proceeds are used to develop energy efficient and environmentally friendly buildings that meet green certification standards. These buildings incorporate sustainable materials, efficient water management, and energy-saving technologies, contributing to lower environmental impact. Furthermore, education. ESG or SRI Sukuk finance the development of schools, universities, training entries, and educational facilities, especially in undeserved communities. Investment in education enhances human capital development and long-term economic growth. Next, I will be discussing some real-life examples of sectors and projects financed through ESG or SRI Sukuk. One notable example is the Tadau Energy Green SRI Sukuk, which was issued in 2017. Tadau Energy raised RM 250 million through Green Sukuk to finance the construction of a 50 megawatt solar photovoltaic power plant in Kudat, Sabah. This project promotes the use of renewable energy and helps reduce carbon emissions, supporting Malaysia's commitment to environmental sustainability. Another important example is the Government of Malaysia's Sustainability Sukuk, which was issued in 2021. It raises USD 1.3 billion. The funds were allocated to projects aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, including sustainable infrastructure, healthcare, education, and climate-related initiatives. This project aims to improve public welfare while supporting sustainable economic growth.